Paddle Flap is a game that started off its life as a game jam a few months ago and has now been developed into a fully fledged release on PC. It reminds me very heavily of circus tent games that seem so simple on the surface but are actually quite difficult to master, because with this game you're using a paddle, very similar to a pinball game really, that you can click and flick to either the left or right depending on where you click it. And if you press and hold the click down of your mouse, you can also change the velocity of how heavy and how fast the paddle will flip. This in turn then changes the trajectory of the balls that are dropping from the top of the screen, and you're using that to your advantage to try and hit as many of the coloured targets as you can, preferably consecutively in a row, so that you can then build up a combo meter for your score to achieve the high score for the online leaderboards. Now, this seems really simple on the surface, and you'll start being a little bit trigger happy, just whacking the paddle left and right and just seeing where the balls will take you. However, very quickly it will start dropping in some clever, spiked targets that will then suck away your life. So what you need to do is then make sure that you avoid all of those while still hitting the targets as quickly as possible to try and keep up a combo meter if you can, but it gets very tricky very quickly, and that's because you'll start to have multiple balls dropping from the sky, you'll have multiple dodgy targets to try and dive around and avoid, and you can use one of 3 power-ups to try and help you clear the way. So one doubles your score, one slows you down. I didn't find that particularly helpful, to be honest. The third one is really helpful, and that removes all of the dodgy targets in the screen so that you're like, I have a zen moment where I can just focus on the targets that I'm after. As you go through all of this, your scores will get translated into tokens, and tokens can unlock different colour palettes, different music, different shapes of balls, or patterns on the balls, to be fair. And that is all there is to Paddle Flap. It's still a short, concise and sweet little game, just emanating from a game jam and being fully fledged so that it can be released out into the wild. I really liked this game initially, but as soon as I started to cross the around 1,000 point mark, which in itself is quite difficult to do sometimes, I started to find that Paddle Flap was tripping over itself to kill me, and it went from being challenging to feeling quite unfair. And this is because you'll have multiple balls in play quite often with multiple targets, the ones that you're trying to hit and the ones that you're trying to avoid. However, when you hit the ones that you're trying to hit, the next pattern immediately appears and you've still got balls in play. And what would invariably happen to me is that I would die because the bad target would appear exactly where my other ball was busy bouncing around, and I had no control over losing a life. And that would happen repeatedly, very quickly, and so my game over, if I mapped out all of my high scores on a graph, it would be like lots of tiny ones where I died immediately, then a nice upward curve for all of my graphs up to about 1,100 points, and then an immediate cliff off because I couldn't get further than that because of the way how the game is designed to just automatically replace targets as soon as you hit the one that you've hit. So it all felt a bit like Urgh! And so what initially was fun for me at the beginning of the game turned into frustration later on, and I wished that there was at least some kind of, I don't know, split 1 second invincibility before the targets were in play, for example, or it kind of throbbed in so that you knew where the next load of targets were coming from, because otherwise you're just playing blind and it felt like the game was out to get me and it was starting to become unfair. So this might still appeal particularly to pinball enthusiasts or people that like a good high score challenge or a retro arcade game, and I'd say probably circus tent games too. But outside of that, I think this is an interesting curio that probably needed a couple more quality of life tweaks to be fully transitioning from that game jam game into a fully fledged release that kept me happy, but maybe I'm kind of being a little overcritical, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just grumpy because I can't get above 1,100 points. Anyway, written review over on highplaygames.com. Leave a thumbs up if you like the video. Catch you later. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.